Hello, everyone. I'm so excited that you guys decided to join me tonight. So welcome to the Wealthy Trustee webinar. Tonight, we are going to be discussing how to build wealth utilizing a trust, okay? So I'm going to go through a short presentation, and then after that, I will allow for some Q&A because I know that you guys are going to have a lot of questions after this webinar, okay? So we're going to dive in and get started. So please remain on mute until the end of the presentation, and then I'll start the Q&A session at the end, okay? So let's get started here. All right, perfect. So let's see here. Go back to the front. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to be your instructor for tonight. Like I said, tonight I'm going to teach you guys all about how to set up a trust, how to operate the trust, how to build wealth with the trust. So my name is Christina Yvette. I am a passive income strategist and a trust strategist. So I've been a trustee since 2015 when I started my real estate investment company, and my mentor at the time told me to actually purchase that property utilizing a trust. So that's when I became a trustee, and I've been operating trust ever since, and I've helped hundreds of people set up their trust, okay? So that is a little bit about me. So now let's dive in. I have a disclaimer for you. So this is not legal advice or tax advice. I am not a licensed attorney or a certified public accountant, okay? So I am a trustee, and I help other people become trustees. So the objective of tonight is you are going to learn what is a trust, the contributors in a trust, how to operate a trust, the tax strategies, the wealth strategies that you can use with the trust, and how to protect your assets, okay? So how do these companies pay no taxes? We have Amazon, we have Berkshire Hathaway, and we have the Trump Organization, okay? So we've heard Donald Trump say that he doesn't pay taxes because he's smart. We've heard Warren Buffett say that he pays less taxes than his secretary. So how is it that these billion-dollar companies are not paying taxes, or they pay very little taxes? It's because they actually have trust within their structure. So that is what I'm going to teach you guys today, is how you can actually either get restructured or structure yourself in the way that you can reduce your tax liability down to zero or almost zero. So I have a US $1 bill here, okay? So my question to you is, does anybody see the word trust on the $1 bill? So somebody could come off of mute and answer the question.
The dollar bill says, "In God we trust."
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Awesome. So in God we is the name of the trust. And the United States of America is a corporation, right? So they are a business entity, and they use trust within their structure. So a lot of people are not aware of this, but if you were born here, or if you were issued a birth certificate or a Social Security card, then the United States used that instrument in order to create a trust for you. So all of us that, are born here or have any of those instruments, we actually have a trust, a sister cuvee trust that the United States of America created. And with that trust is actually tied to an insurance policy. So the United States of America is utilizing trust within their structure. They actually have a trust on all of us, and they're utilizing insurance. So if they are doing it, you should also be doing it. You should also have your own trust. You should also be utilizing insurance. So we're going to dive into that in a little bit. So let's talk about what an actual trust is, right? Because a lot of people, they hear the term trust and they are either familiar or unfamiliar, and they just really don't know what type of entity it is, right? And so a trust is an entity like any other kind of entity, right? You have LLC, you have corporation, those are entities. So a trust is, is equivalent as far as being an entity, okay? But a trust is actually a contract. So it falls under contract law, it falls under trust law. And so it's a contract between several different parties. Those parties I'll touch on in just a minute, but with it, there's several different sections within the contract, okay? So you have the declaration where you are declaring what the trust is and what it is not. And then you have the indenture section of the trust, which is your provisions, your sections, your articles, which pretty much just says the rules, and regulations and how you want the trust to be operated, okay? So with this trust, since it's seen as an entity, it's seen actually as a natural person. So it can do anything and everything that a natural person can do. So if you can buy a house, a trust can buy a house. If you can purchase a car, a trust can purchase a car. If you can build credit, a trust can also build credit. If you can write a book, a trust can write a book. So there's no limitations onto what a trust can actually do, okay? Which is one of the benefits of a trust. But a trust is created by one individual for the benefit of another individual. So let's go through those parties involved in a trust, okay? So the first party that we have is the grantor. The grantor is the creator of the trust, and that individual, sometimes with the grantor, you can use other names interchangeably, like settlor or trustor, okay? So you might hear those when you're doing your research on trust. But the grantor is the creator of the trust, so they actually established the trust for the benefit of someone else, and that person is, the beneficiary, okay? And so the grantor is the creator of the trust, and they're usually the donor of the trust too. So they are the individuals that are going to donate, gift, or convey, or put something into the trust to give the trust value. When you are establishing a trust, you have to give it value, okay? That is what we call a consideration. And so that thing of value could be anything. It could be a $1 bill, it could be $1,000, whatever it is that you want. It could be, a piece of land. It could be anything of value, okay? And so that is generally the position of the grantor. They're creating the trust, and then they put something of value into the trust, because the trust actually has a body. So we call it a corpus, okay? It sounds just like what it is, a corpse, right? A corpse is a body. So the trust has a corpus, which is, the thing of value that you're putting into the trust, okay? So now the next party involved is the trustee. So generally, when the grantor is establishing the trust, they are going to appoint a trustee. The trustee is the controller of the trust. That is the person who is going to operate the trust on the day-to-day basis. That is the fiduciary of the trust, meaning that they're the fiduciaries for the beneficiaries. Okay, so they're the ones who are operating and conducting the trust for the benefits of the beneficiary. So they're growing the assets, and they are, liquidating, buying, growing the wealth, doing, everything that it is in order to operate the trust. Okay. So the trustee has full discretion over how they want to proceed and operate, the trust for the best interests of the trust. The next party involved is the beneficiary. Okay, so with the beneficiary, they are the inheritors of the trust. So if the trust is terminated, then the beneficiaries are going to inherit everything that's inside of the trust, all of the assets. Okay, so one thing with the trust is that it has two very important dates. It has an establishment date and it has a termination date. So the establishment date, sometimes when you are filling out paperwork for the trust, you'll see another name for it is like birthday, right? Because it's seen as a living entity. So the birthday of the trust is the establishment date. So if you were to set up your trust today, then today would be the establishment date or the birthday of the trust. The next day is the termination date, right? So that date it could be 50 years into the future. It could be 100 years into the future, just depending on the term that you decide you want to operate the trust for, okay? And so that termination date is also going to be considered the death day, okay? So your trust has a birthday and a death day, okay? So the when the trust is terminated, right, when it reaches that expiration, then it's up to the trustee to deed everything over or transfer everything over to the beneficiaries. So the beneficiaries pretty much they don't quote unquote own the assets, but eventually they will if you decide that you don't want to renew the trust. But if the trust is due to be expired, you can renew it for an additional 100 years if you would like to do that, which is the goal, right? We want to keep our trust estate in operation for generations and generations and generations to come. So we're in the position of building this generational wealth, okay? So that's extremely powerful. So the whole duty of the beneficiary is they actually want to know and understand the contents of the trust, right? Because the trust is being operated for their benefit. They also want to know what the trustee powers are, because that is the person who's pretty much representing them, who's growing the wealth for them, okay? So let's talk about different types of trust. We have hundreds of types of trust, okay? You have an irrevocable trust, you have revocable, you have a land trust, a charitable trust, a living trust, a testamentary trust. So there are several different types of trust, and there's different categories within the trust too. So I'm going to briefly talk about some. So let's start with express versus implied. So an implied trust is an oral trust, okay? So that is, just like how you can have an oral contract, you can also have an oral trust. I do not advise you to have an oral trust. On the contrary to an implied trust is an express trust. An express trust is where the trust is actually expressed or in writing. It's written. It's on black and white. It's, in a contract form. So that is the type of trust that you want, okay? The next categories is simple versus complex. So with a simple trust, it is short and sweet and it's to the point. And with that type of trust, it is required that the trustees do distributions to the beneficiaries, okay? And that's for tax purposes. With a complex trust, it is longer in nature and it has more provisions and articles. And with that type of trust, it is not required that the trustee have to give any type of distributions to the beneficiaries. Next, we have statutory versus non-statutory. So with those types of trust, you have with the statutory trust, it is what we call statutory in nature, meaning that it has all the state statutes and codes of whatever state that you're setting it up in, okay? So if you're setting it up in Georgia, for example, then it's going to have all the state statutes for Georgia and all the codes for Georgia embedded inside of the trust, which means that you're restricted, and it also means that it can be regulated by your state. Okay, sometimes with these types of trust attorneys, they set up a statutory trust, and so you can only use it, one, in that state, and two, they sometimes register it like on the public records or in your local county, which is not what you want. You want a trust that is private, that is not, registered, or that is not going to be publicized. Okay. So with the statutory trust, like I said, you're limited to the state that you actually set it up in, which is not beneficial, because, for example, if you wanted to buy property with your trust and you set it up in Georgia, but you wanted to buy something in California, you couldn't do that. On the contrary, if you have what we call a non-statutory trust, that means that it doesn't have to abide by your state statutes and codes where you get it notarized or legalized at, and it's not regulated, and it's not registered either, with the Secretary of State, with the county, which is good for you. And so with the non-statutory trust, it falls under the jurisdiction of common law, which is sometimes what we call a pure trust. And so with that, since your jurisdiction is common law, you can actually operate it in the entire nation. So if you, like I said, were notarizing it in Georgia, but you wanted to buy property in California, you can do that. So you can use your trust, in all the states and territories. So that is beneficial to you. The next categories we're going to go over is irrevocable versus revocable. So every single type of trust, it falls within one of these two. So it's either a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust. Okay. So those terms are only applicable to the grantor, which is the person who's actually establishing the trust. They either have a revocability or irrevocability. So with an revocable trust, it means that the grantor can revoke property. So that means they put property into the trust and they can revoke it back. They can revoke the trust, meaning that they can terminate the trust whenever they want. They can revoke beneficiaries and trustees, meaning that they can remove those people from their positions, and they can make amendments to the trust. So because the grantor can make amendments to the trust, a revocable trust is not it's not seen as solidified, or it because it can be changed and altered. It can be picked apart in court. And so on the contrary to the revocable is irrevocable, which is when the grantor actually has irrevocability. So they cannot terminate the trust. They cannot remove the trustees or the beneficiaries. They cannot make any changes, amendments, alterations to the actual trust. And if they were to put property into the trust, they cannot take the property out of the trust. Okay. It would have to be sold back to them. So with that being said, because the grantor cannot make any changes, this is seen as a more solidified trust. And so it's what we call a bulletproof trust, because if it were to go to court, the judge will most likely not decide to pierce the trust, because it can't be changed by the creator. Okay. So that is something to keep in mind when you are deciding what type of trust you actually want to create, or whatever is in the best interest of you and your family. So how do we actually create a trust? These are the steps. Step one, you're going to determine what type of trust you want to create. So I just went over a bunch of different categories and types of trust. So you have to determine which one. So I would tell you to set up a trust that's an express trust, a trust that's complex in nature, a trust that is non-statutory, and a trust that is irrevocable, because that is the trust that's actually going to hold up in court. Especially if it's non-statutory, it means that because it's not regulated by your state, and in your state you have statutory court systems, the court systems in your state cannot even see your trust in that court system because it's a non-statutory trust. Okay, so that is powerful because now you have to go to a higher, more competent court system in order for whoever wants to sue you for that case to be carried out. So next, you're going to determine the trust name. Okay, so when it comes to you naming your trust, one, you do not have to have the word trust in the name of your trust. Okay, so your trust can actually it could be called, you know, anything that you want. One thing that I do not recommend is that you call your trust after your own name. Okay, so do not name your trust after if your name is John Doe, do not call your trust John Doe. Okay, unless you have a specific reason for wanting to do that. But when it comes to naming your trust, you want to have that obscurity and you want to obviously conceal your identity. You don't want people to know that you're the trustee or that you're associated with this trust. So some people generally, they like to use their initials or they like to use unrelated names, right? If you're doing real estate, some people like to use the actual address of the property for that specific trust. When you are setting up a business trust, you can use names like holding. You can use abbreviations like LLC, Co, Corp, company. You can use those names and phrases when you are naming your trust, okay? Next, you're going to appoint a grantor. So if you're setting up an irrevocable trust, you do not want to be the grantor of your trust because the grantor has no power and no control, right? They pretty much appoint the trustee to have all the power and control and they walk away from the trust. So if you want the best type of trust, which is irrevocable, then what you're going to do is you are going to actually appoint someone to be your grantor on paper. So that person can be a next of kin, so that it could be a sibling, it could be a neighbor, a cousin, you know, it could be a coworker, whoever is actually able to notarize the trust with you, okay? Because the trust does need to be legalized and notarized by the grantor and the trustee. So next you're going to appoint the trustee, which you are going to appoint yourself because you want full power and control over your assets and over your money and over your growing wealth. Next, you're going to appoint your beneficiaries. So typically your beneficiaries are your children. They can also be other companies and entities in trust, okay? So sometimes what we do is we will make the beneficiary of our business trust our family trust. So you can do that as well. That's a really good strategy when you are determining who the beneficiary of your trust is going to be. And then you're going to choose a successor. So you have to understand that your trust is going to outlive you. Okay, so if this trust estate that you're creating is for generational wealth and it's going to, you know, live on for 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 generations down the line, then it needs to constantly be renewed, which means that you need a successor or somebody who's going to take over after you. So the successor trustee it needs to be someone who qualifies to be a successor. So they obviously need to be 18 and older. That's one. And two, they actually need to have the desire to want to operate a trust. They have to accept the position and, you know, sign that they're accepting the position. So they're not going to take over as the trustee until you're done. Meaning if you resigned, if you expired, or if you become incapacitated, then the successor is going to take over. So you want to appoint a successor as soon as possible because tomorrow is not promised. Number 3, we're going to actually create the trust agreement. So the word indenture means agreement. And like we said, your trust is a contract, okay? And so you are going to, you know, create the contract. You're going to put all of your provisions in there. You're going to put, you know, all of the rules, restrictions, things that you want, right? So for example, if you want to restrict the beneficiaries from receiving any distributions until they're, you know, 25 years old and out of college, you can do that, okay? Next, you're going to get the trust notarized. So the trust does need to be notarized in order for it to be legalized, okay? And it's going to be notarized by the grantor and the trustee. Those are the two individuals that need to sign in front of a notary in order to get the trust legalized. Once the trust is legalized, then you can actually start operating the trust, okay? So the first thing that you want to do when you are done notarizing the trust is you want to have a board meeting. So your board meeting for your trust is your meeting minutes are the lifeline or the backbone of your trust, right? Because your trust is a living entity, but it's not able to execute things on its own. It has a representative, which is the trustee. So when you are doing things on behalf of the trust, you're going to have a board meeting about it. It's very, very important. And so the first board meeting that you're going to have is you actually opening up that trust bank account, right? And so you're going to have a board meeting about it. And then after that, you're going to add it to your trust. So when it comes to you opening up a trust bank account, you are going to only have to provide a few things. One is a certificate of trust. A certificate of trust is proof of identification of the trust, right? So for example, like we have a driver's license, and so once they ask us as entities for proof of ID, we show our driver's license. So the trust is a private contract, and you're not going to show that private contract to anybody. So if they say, let's just say the banker asks you to show the trust, you're going to kindly decline and say, no, here is my certificate of trust proving the existence that a trust actually does exist, okay? Because your trust is 50 pages. And so you're not going to bring all 50 pages with you to the bank account or to the closing table or to, the dealership when you're purchasing assets for the trust, okay? So you're going to bring your EIN or your 98 number, and then you're going to bring your certificate of trust, and that's how you're going to open up your bank account, okay? So remember I said you have to actually give the trust value when you are establishing the trust. So that's super important. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to deposit those funds into the actual trust bank account. And typically on paper, the way it's seen is the grantor is going to hand over whatever the consideration is. So let's just say it's $1,000. The grantor is going to hand the trustee $1,000, and the trustee is going to accept it on behalf of the trust. And then the trustee is going to deposit it into the trust bank account. But now, fast forward, we are actually going to be, putting our own funds into the trust. So when it comes to us funding the trust, let's just say that we decide to put $1,000 into the trust. That is a loan, okay? So you can issue loans to the trust, and you can also borrow funds from the trust as the trustee and the beneficiaries as well, which is extremely powerful. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But what's going to happen now is that $1,000 that you're initially putting into the trust is a loan. And so the trust is actually going to have to issue you a promissory note. And so the trust is going to issue you a promissory note promising to pay you back the $1,000 plus interest in, let's just say a 6-month term, okay? And so that is what is, going to initially happen when you are funding the trust, because that money came from, let's just say, from your W-2 or from your personal bank account. So you need to be paid back. So that's important. Number 6 is transferring assets into the trust. So this is one of the most important steps, is actually protecting your assets and actually putting them into your trust. So the first thing when you're transferring assets is you're going to list the assets within the trust documents, and then you actually have to do the transfer either through the state or county. So let's just say that you have a primary residence. With this primary residence, you are, it's in your personal name, And so when you purchased it and you were issued a warranty deed. And so what needs to happen is you need to now gift it over to the trust. You do not have to sell the property and trigger any capital gains taxes to the trust, right? So all you can do is just gift it to the trust, which you avoid that whole entire capital gains. So the way that you're going to gift it over is by doing a quit claim deed, and you're going to deed it from your personal name into the trust. It does need to be notarized, and you need to sign it, and then you have to submit it to your county. So it's either your county recorder's office or your clerk of courts. And so once you submit that new deed, then they are able to reflect and change the ownership of the property, and they are going to reflect on the public records that the house is now owned by a trust, which protects you, because now people are not going to know that you actually, own this property or you have any ties to this property, which is powerful, especially if there's like any lawsuits involved. So now we're going to talk about the operation of the trust. So how do you operate a trust? Well, you operate a trust just like how you would operate yourself, right? Your natural person, right? So what does that look like? Well, if the trust owns any assets, so for example, we just put that primary residence into the trust, right? So now it's the trust responsibility to deal with any financial obligations dealing with that house. So for example, if the house has a mortgage, now the trust is going to take over and pay that mortgage. If the house has any taxes, the trust is going to pay those taxes. Any utilities that are associated with that house, the trust is now going to pay that. So that's what that operation looks like. It looks like you paying the financial responsibilities for the assets that are inside of the trust, and you documenting it with your meeting minutes, okay? So now let's talk about asset protection, because that's the number one reason why you would want to actually set up a trust. And then the second reason is because you can maintain 100% privacy, right? Because your trust is private. And so you're not going to show your trust to anybody. 2, you're going to take an oath of privacy. And 3, the information that you're going to be providing as far as your position and other people's position within the trust is only on a need to know basis, okay? So now let's talk about what a trust can actually protect you from. It can protect you from lawsuits. It can protect you from divorces. It can protect you from bankruptcies, from heavy taxations, from probate, from foreclosures. So let's talk about lawsuits. When it comes to lawsuits, right, let's just say that you are in business, you have an LLC or an S corporation, right? And so typically, your LLC is on the public records. You can just go to the Secretary of State's website, and then anybody can check and see who the owner of that business is. So if you are the authorized member or manager of that LLC, then your name is there listed on the public records. So if anybody wanted to sue that business, then they can simply just go to the Secretary of State and start a lawsuit with that business, and they'll be able to find who the owner is, okay, and serve you for that lawsuit. And so let's just say that your LLC is being sued, right? LLC stands for a limited liability company. So a lot of people think that you have no liability, but that's not true. You have limited liability, okay? So now if that business is being sued, and let's just say that the business can't cover the entire judgment, then the judge can decide to pierce that corporate veil. And if the judge pierces that corporate veil, they can go after you personally. So they can go after the authorized member. And when they come after you personally, that means that anything that you have in your personal name, as far as like your bank account, they can they can freeze your bank accounts. They can garnish your wages. They can and seize your assets. And so you don't want to be put in that position to where your business is sued and then they can come after you personally as the owner of that business. So in order to protect yourself, you want to have the first layer of protection, which is having a business trust be the owner of that LLC. And so what's going to happen is you're going to do an amendment and you're going to remove yourself as the authorized member and you're going to add the business trust as the authorized member of that LLC. And so now when we are in this lawsuit, what's going to happen is once that judge decides to pierce the corporate veil, they're going to go after the trust instead of going after you, which protects you. It protects you, it protects your assets, it protects your family. So keep that in mind. Next is divorce, right? Divorce is a transfer of wealth. Okay. So divorce is a lawsuit as well between typically a husband and a wife, two individuals. And so with the divorce, if you have assets that are in a trust, the trust cannot be included in your divorce. Okay. So that is extremely powerful when it comes to, when it comes to this type of situation. So let me give you an example. I have a client who he has been married for 10 years, and in 2008, him and his wife, they bought 2 properties, and they obviously ended up upside down because the market had crashed. And so she prohibited him from purchasing, more property. And so what he ended up doing was he ended up setting up a trust, and he bought 5 more properties and put them inside of the trust. And so fast forward 10 years later, they're getting a divorce, and everything that he has inside of the trust, meaning those 5 properties, are not included in the divorce. They are protected because they are in a trust, and everything outside of the trust is included in the divorce. So you want to protect yourself when it comes to this type of situation, okay? Next, let's talk about heavy taxation, because I don't know if you know this, but the IRS, they're going to get theirs regardless. And so the IRS, they tax you very heavily, right? Some people are giving away 50% of their income in taxes, which is crazy. You got state taxes, you have federal taxes. But another thing is that the IRS, they tax you, also when you die too, right? So they tax you a death tax, inheritance tax, and estate tax. So if you have a trust can actually protect you from those types of taxes. And it depends on the type of trust that you actually have to where you can actually reduce your tax liability down to 0. So one example that I want to give you is if you use a tax exempt nonprofit trust. Okay, that's a ministry trust. And with that, what you can do, let's just say that you're a W-2 employee, right? With your W-2 income, the federal withholdings is done first, right? And then you have Social Security and Medicare, and then you get whatever is left over. So let's just say that you make $100,000. What you can do is you can donate up to 60% of your gross income to your trust. That is extremely powerful because now you can reduce your taxation. So if you are, let's just say you're generating $100,000 per year, you can donate $60,000 to your trust, or 60%, and now you're only going to be taxed on $40,000 or 40%. So that means that you reduced your tax liability. Now you're going to be paying less taxes. So you're not going to be taxed on 100,000 anymore. You're going to be only taxed on 40,000. So what can you do with that 60,000? A lot, right? You can purchase property, stocks, crypto, all kind of stuff. So you want to be able to reduce your taxation so that you can build wealth effectively, efficiently, and faster, okay? By not giving it away. Let's just be real. And so that is one of the strategies that you can use to avoid heavy taxation. Now let's move on to probate. probate is inevitable. Okay. So probate is when, and this is a question that I like to ask a lot of people, right? If you have a house and that house is in your personal name today, right now, and let's just say you expire tomorrow, how do you expect that house to be transferred to your children's name or your spouse's name? A lot of people, they don't think about that. They don't think about the actual transfer of wealth. They only think about, let me make the $1 million or let me buy the house. But how is the house going to be transferred to your children's name if it's in your personal name and you expire? And so a lot of people think that a will is good enough, and a will is not good enough. A will end up in probate. That's one thing for sure. So the only thing that can actually avoid probate is a trust. That is the only entity that can avoid or prevent you from going through probate. So let me explain the probate process. Let's just say that you have assets. You have a house, you have a car, you have 6 figures in the bank, and you expire. And you expire with these assets, and you didn't have your affairs in order. You just only had a will because you thought that was good enough, right? But a will just only tells your last testamentary, right? Your last testament. So your desires, that's all that it does. A will can't own anything. Okay, so it's not like an estate. And so with that being said, you end up in probate, right? Which is you doing your family a disservice because they just experienced a loss, which is you. And so now, instead of them grieving properly, they're going to be dragged into this probate process because now they got to fight for your house and they have to fight for the money in your bank because you didn't have your affairs in order. Okay. And so because you didn't have your affairs in order, your state is going to issue you an estate. So typically they name it after you. So if your name is John Doe, then they're going to issue the John Doe estate. Okay. And this estate needs to be represented. So it's going to be represented by a probate attorney, and it's going to end up in probate court because now it's up to the judge to determine what happens with your assets. So you're putting control into someone else's hands that doesn't even know you. Okay, so you want to avoid this probate process at all costs. But anyways, let's move forward. So when it comes to probate, now what's going to happen is, let's just say that you passed away with debt. Let's just say you had student loan debt and you also had credit card debt. This estate is now going to be subject to estate tax, inheritance tax, and death tax. Okay, so the IRS is going to take theirs. Then your creditors are going to go after your estate. So the student loan is going to go after your estate and the credit card companies. Then the probate attorney needs to be paid and the probate court fees need to be paid. So all of those things is going to be taken out of your estate before your kids even see a dime. Okay, and so that is unfortunate, and I've seen it to where some families, they can't even keep the house or the car or the bank accounts because all of the fees and taxes and debt that was owed. So now let's just say on the contrary, you had a trust, right? So a trust is going to actually avoid probate because everything is owned by the trust. So if you expire, there is no transfer that needs to take place because everything's going to stay intact because it's owned by the trust. That's 1. 2, if you die with debt, guess what? Your debt died with you. Okay. So if you had student loan debt, if you had credit card debt, those creditors cannot go after your trust. They cannot go after your estate. Okay. Another thing is the IRS, they're not going to come after you either because the trust is its own entity. So they can't charge the trust a death tax. They can't charge the trust an inheritance tax. They don't even know who the beneficiaries are. So that's extremely powerful. So that's why I'm telling you that The number one reason why you want to set up a trust is for asset protection. So let's get into the wealth building formula. All right, we're about to wrap it up here. So with the wealth building formula, we have 3 pillars. The first one is structure, the second one is credit, and the last one is invest. So with structure, you want to either get restructured or you want to structure yourself properly. And so the way that you're going to do that is I highly recommend it is that you use multiple trusts within your structure. You don't want to do everything in one trust, right? Because just in case that trust is sued, you have, all of your assets in one trust. So now that is up for grabs. So you don't want that. So you want to be able to spread out your assets within multiple trusts. So let's start with the business trust. So the business trust, you can use it for 2 ways. You can use it either as a holding company, or you can use it to conduct business. So first, we're going to use it as a holding company. So that means that you can hold other assets with that holding company. So those other assets are LLCs, S corporations, and other business equipment, things like that. So for example, let's just say that you have the LLC or the S corp or C corp, right? What I told you guys earlier is that you want to remove yourself as the owner, authorized member, manager, president, CEO, any of those positions. You want to remove yourself as those positions, and you want to add the business trust as that position. So now the business trust is the CEO or the authorized member of the entity. That is going to protect you in case the business is sued, okay? So that is highly, highly, highly advised, okay? Another thing is, let's just say that business actually is generating income. Well, because, for example, let's just say it's an LLC. Because that LLC is owned by a trust, what the LLC can do, because it's a pass-through entity, is it can actually distribute 100% of the income to the owner. So that means 100% of the income is going to go to the business trust, okay? So another way that you can use a business trust is just by conducting business. You do not need an LLC or an S corporation or a C corporation. It depends on the type of business that you have. So for example, if you have businesses that are regulated by the state, like a hospital or like a trucking company, then yes, you do need an LLC or an S corp. But if you have like an e-com company or a service-based business, stuff like that, then you're fine. So I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but when you are setting up these entities like the LLCs and the S corps and C corps, you're setting it up through the Secretary of State. So that means that they are actually setting it up for you, right? So they're creating the business for you. So they have jurisdiction over the business. They have, they can also regulate the business. They can shut down the business whenever they want. Okay, so you're giving a lot of power and control to the state. So you can actually set up a business trust and operate your business as normal privately. Okay, so that is the 2 reasons why you would want to set up a business trust. The third is to actually establish business credit, which I'll talk about in just a moment. So now we have that $100,000, right? So that $100,000 that was generated by our LLC, we actually distributed it to our business trust. And so now, once it's in the level of the business trust, because it came from the LLC now has a 0% tax liability because it distributed all of the money to the owner. So now we pay 0 taxes in the LLC, and now all the money's in the business trust. And the business trust, you can do your deductions, or what the business trust can do is it can actually distribute or it can actually distribute 100% of that money to its beneficiary. And so that's why you want to make the beneficiary of your business trust your private family trust, because that's where you're going to be doing all of your expenses for your family or for your livelihood. Okay, so that $100,000 now got distributed to the private family trust. And so at the business trust level, your tax liability is 0%. So now that we're at the private family trust level, what's going to happen is you're going to do all of your expenses. Okay, so you're going to expend everything that you need to, right? Your mortgage, you're going to expend your your groceries, your tuition, everything, right? And so that $100,000, let's just say that you did all of your expenses and you got it down to 20,000, right? So you spent 80 of it, because that's one of the beauties with these entities is that you spend first and you pay taxes on whatever's left over, right? And with us, it's the other way around. As a W-2 employee, you get taxed first and then you spend what's left over. So at that level, you have $20,000 that's left. So what you can do is you can pay taxes on that $20,000. Or what you can do is you can actually donate it to your tax exempt ministry trust, which is extremely powerful. So let's just say that we donated that $20,000 to our ministry trust. Then at the private family trust level, our tax liability is 0%, which is good. So now that 20,000 is at our tax exempt ministry trust, you are done reporting taxes, okay? Because that trust is tax exempt. So it's actually designated as a 508c1a. Other names for it is church, ministry, faith-based organization, convention, auxiliary. There's a lot of different names for it, but pretty much it falls under the protection of the separation of between church and state, okay? And so with that being said, you actually do not have to file for tax exempt status. So you don't have to do the 501c3. You are automatically, it's one of the mandatory exceptions to having to file for the 501c3. So if you are a trust and if you are designated as a 508c1a, then you do not have to file for a 501 and you are automatically tax exempt, which means that one, you don't have to file federal taxes, and two, you don't have to give any of your bookkeepings or any of your board meetings or any of your records, right? They don't need to be under public scrutiny through the IRS. Another thing is that you also won't have your rights restricted, because with a 501, they restrict your freedom of speech because you cannot talk about politics. So that is extremely powerful. So now when that 20,000 is there, like I said, you're done reporting taxes. So what are you going to do with that 20,000? You're going to invest it, or you will just issue yourself a loan and take it right back out of the trust. Okay. So with that type of trust, the whole purpose of it is for your, philanthropic endeavors. So now let's move on to the second pillar, which is credit, right? So you can actually establish corporate credit with your business trust, right? You don't want to do it with the other trust. You just want to choose one trust, because when you are establishing credit, you are pulling that trust into the commercial side. And so you're pulling it into the public. But we want our trust to remain private. So that's why you're going to designate one trust that you're going to use commercially in order to build credit, okay? Which is substantial, because now you are not only going to be subject to actually leveraging your personal credit, but now you can actually leverage the trust credit as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to be intentional about actually creating trust corporate credit, and it's just like building business credit. So the way that works is you're going to get a DUNS number, you're going to create a credit profile, and you're going to apply for these net 30 accounts, or these account receivables, so that you can actually generate a paydex score. And then once you start generating that paydex score, or that credit score for the trust, then you can start applying for credit cards. So what you want to do is you want to establish that credit so that you can get a line of credit or a credit card. And typically with businesses, you get higher limits, which is good, because what we want to do is we want to leverage it so that we can invest. Okay, that's the whole purpose of us actually building wealth. So the next thing is that you can actually apply for nonprofit grants, because you have a nonprofit within your structure. That tax exempt nonprofit trust qualifies for nonprofit grants. So now you can get grants, and what you can do with those grants, like I said, you can do your philanthropic endeavors, but also with the money, you can invest as well, okay? So now we're going to move on to the next pillar, which is invest. So the two investments that I recommend is, one is is an index universal life insurance policy, and the other one is real estate. So let's talk about the IUL policy. With that policy, you want to put yourself in a position to where you are paying yourself first. So a lot of us, we don't do that, right? We don't pay ourselves first. So this is actually a lifestyle change, and this is a mindset shift, because traditionally what happens is we get our paycheck, right? And like I said, the IRS took their federal withholdings, the Social Security took theirs, Medicare took theirs, right? So everybody got theirs, and then we got what's left over. And so with that being said, now once the money hits our bank account, it's just going to sit in our checking account. And what do? We spend it. So we are paying everybody first, right? So we pay our mortgage, the kids' tuition, put gas, groceries, car note, everything. And whatever is left over, we either keep it in our checking account, or we will put it into like a high yield savings account or something like that. And so that's the wrong way of doing things. That is not going to help you build wealth at all. So if you want to build wealth intentionally, then what you need to do is you need to put yourself in a position to where you're paying yourself first. And the way that you're going to do that is, when that money hits your bank account, instead of you paying your mortgage, instead of you paying your car note and buying groceries and all this other stuff, what you're going to do is you are going to park that money into your insurance policy. That is you paying yourself first, because with that insurance policy, that money is going to sit in what we call your cash value. Okay. And so that money is actually going to be growing and compounding. So with an index universal life insurance policy, it's tied to the index, right? So it's tied to the market, and you can choose whatever index you want it to be tied to. You have the NASDAQ, you have the Dow Jones, you have the S&P 500. So you choose. So with that being said, the actual insurance company is going to match whatever the market is doing. So if the market is doing 9%, then you're going to get 9% returns on your cash value that's inside of your policy. Okay. So that's extremely powerful, because now, like I said, you're going to be tapping into compound interest, which is, one of those eighth wonders of the world. Okay. So with that being said, this is how you're actually going to pay yourself first. So let's just say that you got $10,000. You just got paid today. You got $10,000, right? So typically we pay all of our bills first, and we're only left with $2, and we can only invest with $2. No. So instead of us paying all of our bills first, we're going to deposit the entire $10,000 into our insurance policy. And so that is going to now go into your cash value. Your cash value is going to go up by $10,000. And what you're going to do is you're going to borrow the money out of your insurance policy. So your insurance policy, one, it's liquid, so it has liquidity. Two, is tax-free. 3, it is an asset. A lot of people do not understand this concept. Your insurance policy is supposed to be used when you are alive, not when you are dead. Okay. So with that being said, you need to use your insurance policy effectively. These banks, right? So we have like Citibank, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, their number one investment is insurance policies. It's not the credit cards that they're issuing. It's not the mortgages that they're issuing. They have insurance policies, and that's their number one investment. Also, the United States of America, right? They have issued an insurance policy on every single person born in this country that was issued a social security number and a birth certificate. So that insurance policy belongs to them. And when we're tapping into these social services, we're tapping into that insurance policy. Okay. So a lot of us, we don't know that. So now, if the United States of America, their number one investment is insurance policy, I think your number one investment should be insurance policy. If Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and all these big banks, if their number one investment is insurance policy, I think that your number one investment should be in insurance policies, because it's risk-free. It's risk-free. So let's get back to the scenario here. So when we're depositing that 10,000, our cash value just grew by 10,000, and now we need to be able to pay our bills. So what we're going to do is we are going to borrow it back out. So we're going to contact the insurance carrier, and we're going to have them issue us a loan for the 10,000. So they're going to look at your cash value. They're going to see that you have that money in your cash value. And so they're going to approve and give you the loan for that money. So you're going to borrow against it, right? So you are actually taking out a loan from the insurance company, from their money, from their reserves. Okay. So the money is coming from the insurance company's money. It is not coming from your policy. So your 10,000 stays in your policy, and it stays working, and it stays making 8, 9, 10%. And they are going to direct deposit 10,000 back into your bank account. And at that point in time, now you are able to pay your mortgage, your utilities, and everything that you need to pay. So you need to pay yourself first by utilizing your insurance policy, borrowing the money back out, and then paying your bills second. So that is how you're going to build wealth efficiently and effectively. So now let's move on to real estate, right? So fast forward, we went and got, we established credit with our business trust. And with this credit, let's just say that we got a credit card for $50,000. What we're going to do is, the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to park that $50,000, right? We're going to strip that credit card. We're going to park that $50,000 into our insurance policy. And then we're going to borrow that $50,000 out. And then we are going to use it as a down payment on real estate. Okay. So with real estate, you can actually take out a mortgage with your trust, as long as your trust qualifies for the mortgage, meaning that you have to show bank statements or proof of income, okay, which is your bank statements, right? So now, if you are buying an investment property, you can use a debt service loan, okay? That means that with this particular property, as long as the rent is able to cover the debt service or the loan or the mortgage, then you're able to qualify for that investment property. So typically your down payment could be 10%, it could be 15%, it could be upwards of 20%. It just depends on the company that you're using to get this loan. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a loan, the debt service loan, and let's just say that we have 15% down. That 15% is going to come from that $50,000 credit card, right? But like I said, we parked it into the insurance policy, so it's already working for us, making 9%. So now we're going to use it as a down payment for real estate. So now we're double dipping. We're double dipping to the point that we are now going to use the same 50,000 as a down payment for real estate. So now we executed and we got the house. And so now let's just say that this house is generating $4,000 a month for us in cash flow. So what are we going to do with that cash flow? Well, that cash flow, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to park it into our insurance policy, and then we're going to borrow it back out. So now that 4,000 went into our insurance policy, our cash value went up by the 4,000. We borrowed it back out, and then we went and we covered our mortgage, and we went and covered our credit card, right? So now at this point in time, you have two income streams. You have the income that you're getting from the returns for your insurance policy, as well as the cash flow from your real estate, because you want to put yourself in a position to where your trust is actually generating its own income. You don't want to be pouring in your W-2 income into your trust. You want your trust to self-sustain itself, okay? To be self-sustained. So, hope that made sense. So how do we transfer the wealth, right? You want to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. I'm going to repeat that. You want to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. That is the definition of stewardship. So you want to be on the side of stewardship versus the side of ownership. A lot of us, we are proud owners, right? We don't even know that our name is in the public records, and that you can easily just go down to, the county website and do a property search, and every single house that you own in that property is going to show up if they type in your first and last name. So we don't know that. So we don't want to be on that side of ownership, right? We want to protect our assets, and we want to be on the side of stewardship, where we're being a good steward of the wealth, meaning that we are actually, controlling the wealth, guiding the wealth, preserving the wealth, right? So that's what, that is the goal. So now, how is it that you actually transfer the wealth, right? So with a trust, like I said, if you expire tomorrow and all of your assets are owned by a trust, there is nothing that needs to be done, meaning that your successor is going to come and take over, and they're going to continue to operate the trust as usual, business as usual, right? And your children are the beneficiaries. So there's nothing that they need to do, because the ownership is going to stay intact and is going to stay with the trust, okay? So with the actual trust, the trust is going to, when you're establishing it, is going to actually generate or create what we call trust certificate units, which are TCUs. The other name for it is units of beneficial interest, or UBIs. So with these TCUs, they are equivalent to stock certificates. So you know how with stock certificates, they represent the ownership of a company, corporation, or you as a shareholder. Well, the TCUs are the same way. So they represent your beneficial interest in the trust, or you as a TCU holder, okay? So with the TCUs, right, the trust is going to generate 100 TCUs, which represents 100% of beneficial interest. So let's just say that you have 4 beneficiaries. You want to issue them equal beneficial interest. So you're going to issue them 25 TCUs per beneficiary, okay? Because it has to 1 equal 100, and 2, there's no fractions, okay? So with that being said, with the 100 TCUs, let's just say that there's a distribution that needs to be made. So for example, $10,000 in income came in, we have to distribute it to the beneficiaries. And what's going to happen is that your distribution is going to be representative of how many TCUs you hold. So if that beneficiary holds 25, then they're going to get $2,500 from this distribution. Now, let's just say fast forward to the actual trust, right? So let's just say is 100 years into the future, the trust is terminated. So the actual trustee needs to deed over the properties to the beneficiaries. So let's just say that there's 100 houses in this one trust. So what's going to happen is 25 houses are going to be deeded over to the beneficiaries because they have 25 units. Okay. So that is what it represents. So it represents beneficial interest. We don't use the word ownership when we're talking about a trust because a trust is seen as a living entity and no one can own a living entity, just like no one can own us. Okay. So it's the same thing. So now let's move on to preservation because preservation is important. We don't want our wealth to be dissipated. We've seen it so many times where we have, where there's these famous families and by the third and fourth generation, the wealth, already disappeared because they spent it all, right? It's a term that we use that's called spendthrift. And so we do not want the future beneficiaries to spendthrift. So we want to practice preservation when we're talking about our wealth. Okay. So, so the way that we're going to do that is by utilizing insurance. Okay. We had spoke about it on the previous slide. And so insurance is vitally important, and that's how you're actually going to preserve the wealth. So how do we do that? One thing that I want to mention is that when it comes to insurance, your trust is going to own the insurance policy. Your trust is going to be the payer of the insurance policy, and your trust is going to be the beneficiary of the insurance policy. That is super important, okay? So now that your trust owns these policies, your trust is going to be paying the premium. That's one. Two, your trust is going to take out a policy on every single person involved in the trust, right? Because you are what we considered a human resource. You are what we consider a human asset to the trust. So if anything happens to you, guess what? The trust just suffered a loss and the trust needs to be compensated. So you are the insured of the policy and the trust is actually the beneficiary. So when you expire, the trust is going to receive that death benefit, okay? So that's one thing that you need to be aware of. The second thing is that the trust is going to take out a policy on every single trustee and beneficiary and future beneficiary. So if there is a beneficiary that is just born, right? As long as that baby, is 30 days old, the trust is going to take out a policy on that beneficiary. Okay. So now let's fast forward. Fast forward to that beneficiary being 18 years old, right? That beneficiary is now 18 and they want to buy their first car. Typically what would happen is they would go down to the dealership, pull their credit and get into, into a loan, right? A 5-year loan where they're paying, $600 a month and, they just purchased a $30,000 car. And so that's what happens. And so they're going to be paying that money to the dealership. Or what they can do is they can actually borrow the funds from the trust, right? So they can go to the trustee, they can ask for a loan for $30,000 in order to purchase their first vehicle. And so now what the trustee is going to do is they're going to issue out a promissory note from the beneficiary to the trust, promising to pay back the $30,000 plus interest. Let's just say 2%, right? We want to be generous, and for 3 years, right? And so now that beneficiary is going to be put in the position to where instead of paying the dealership $600, now they're paying the trust $350. And so now the trust is gaining that 2% in interest and actually gaining wealth that way. So that's one, right? But where did the money come from? So the money actually did not come from the trust, and they didn't come from the trust bank account. The trustee went and borrowed the $30,000 from the beneficiary's life insurance policy. So now this actually becomes risk-free for the trust, because they borrowed the $30,000 against the beneficiary's policy. So now the insurance company issued out a check for the $30,000 to the trust. The trust issued out a check for the $30,000 to the beneficiary. Okay. So in the event that that beneficiary decides that they don't want to pay back the $30,000, or they default on that loan, guess what happens? One, is risk-free because the money was pulled out from the insurance company, and two, the money doesn't need to be paid back because it comes out of the death benefit. So now what happens is the trust is going to be paid back once that beneficiary expires. That is what we call preservation. That's what we call the trust being replenished. Okay, so that is something that's vitally important. It's something that you need to incorporate within your structure, especially if you want to be intentional about creating generational wealth. So these are the books that I recommend. What Would the Rockefellers Do? That's a really good book teaching you about how to utilize a trust and simultaneously utilize insurance policies in order to grow your wealth. The next is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2. That is a good book teaching you guys about trusteeship and how to operate a trust. The next one is Family Wealth. It teaches you about how to run a family office, and and it also touches on insurance. And then the last one is The Complete Book of Trust, which teaches you about the different types of trust so that you guys can do your research and your due diligence. So take action on the information that I provided you guys tonight. This could be your new form of doing business and making profit. The trust can actually save you from a lot of the problems that you guys are facing, dealing with protecting your assets, dealing with, saving money on taxes, as long as you decide to operate it efficiently and effectively. So that means that you want to treat this like a big business. You want to treat this like a Google, a Facebook, an Amazon. You don't want to treat this like some small, mom and pop's organization. Okay. You need to be intentional about growing your wealth, about creating and establishing generational wealth, because you are what we call a generational curse breaker, right? You are changing the trajectory of your family, your kids' kids. Now what you're going to be doing is you're going to be raising your kids to be successors and trustees instead of, what is, currently happening. Okay. So like I said, this is extremely powerful. So let's work together. Okay. I do have a program that teaches you guys how to actually create the 3 trusts that we were talking about: the business trust, the private family trust, and the tax exempt nonprofit ministry trust. So I have a course. It has 42 video modules, which I'll show you in just a minute. And you have lifetime access to it. You have all the resources, meaning the templates, right? The templates for the actual trust. I'll show you what a trust looks like, because some people, they've never seen a trust before. And so you get the resources, you get the templates, you get the tax documents, you get everything that you need. Board meeting minute templates, everything that you need, plus the ebooks. So all the books that I just recommended, you get them in ebook form. And some of those books are valued at over $700 on Amazon. So do your research. And then you also get a community. So we have a Facebook community where we share our wins, and we ask questions. So the course is $997. And you can go to wealthytrustee.com. And the other option is done with you, meaning that me and you, we jump on a Zoom call and we do it together as a group. And it's a series of 5 Zoom calls. So the first one is, so day 1, we set up your business trust. So we go through the actual contents of the trust, right? So for example, the business trust is 51 pages, right? So in order for you to actually operate a business trust, and for you to do it efficiently, you need to know what's inside of the business trust. So I break down every single paragraph in the trust so that you can know what you're doing, okay? And so that's day 1. Day 2, we actually set up your private family trust. Day 3, we set up the ministry trust. Day 4, we go through your EINs. We apply for your EINs and establish your business meeting, your business credit, and we do your board meetings. And then day 4, we transfer your assets and we go through infinite banking, okay? And so you have unlimited access to the course. You have lifetime, lifetime access. You have unlimited assistance, and you get that sense of security that your trust is actually being set up the right way. So right now that is starting at $14.97, and the price is actually going up. So on Monday, I'm actually bringing the price up to $2,500. So this is the last time that this is going to be offered at the $14.97 for the Done With You. And like I said, the price is going up to $2,500. But I do have an offer for you guys. So if you guys take action, tonight. So if you want to get into either the Done With You or the course is going to be 50% off up until midnight. And the Done With You is going to be 20% off up until midnight for people who want to take action right away and take action today. So let me show you what the actual course looks like and what a trust looks like. And here is my contact information. If you guys have any questions, you can email me. You can visit me on social media, and you can visit the company at 7 Ways to Wealth. And then you can also text the number that you receive the Zoom link on, okay? So let's go through the actual course. This is what it looks like. That's the Wealthy Trustee program. Like I told you, there's 42 lessons. So the first thing that you're going to go through is the actual trust entity. So you learn what is a trust, who are the parties involved, so who's the grantor, the trustees, beneficiaries, successors, protectors, the different types of trust. Then you learn how to set up your tax exempt business trust. So we go through the declarations, the bylaws, the articles, and then you learn how to apply for the EIN and how to set it up. And then the same thing for the private family trust and the unincorporated business trust. Then we go through the tax strategies, because you want to put yourself in a position to where you're actually saving 60% of your income, okay? So we go through the tax strategies for you to be tax exempt or for you to reduce your tax liability. We show you how to apply for sales tax. We show you the difference between the different tax requirements for the trust. And then we show you what we call distributable net income, meaning that you as a trustee can determine what is considered income and what is not considered income. Next, we go through asset protection. So the first thing you want to do is take an inventory of your asset, and then we teach you how to create a bank account or open up a bank account. We teach you how to open up a brokerage account, how to transfer your house, doing the quick claim deeds, how to transfer your car into the trust with the bill of sale, transferring your title, how to transfer your insurance policies if you have one, how to transfer the ownership of your LLC by doing an amendment through your Secretary of State, how to do your board meetings. And then we go through wealth creation, which is how to build corporate credit for your business trust, as well as how to invest in the stock market, doing index fund investing, and how to do infinite banking. Then you have all the resources that you need and the ebooks that I talked to you about. So that's the course. Like I said, you get lifetime access with whichever program you decide to choose. And then let me show you what a trust looks like. So this is what a trust looks like. This one is the unincorporated business trust. and it has 51 pages. Okay, so this is what we consider the non-statutory common law pure trust. So everything that you see in red is what you would be filling out if you are doing it, independently. So we have like our table of contents here. Then we have our initial declaration. So you're going to put like the name of the trust, the establishment date and time, things like that. So I'm just going to scroll down and show you guys, the actual, what it actually looks like. So this is a very lengthy trust. It has all the sections and provisions. So there's 38 sections in this trust that is going to protect you. It's what we call a bulletproof trust. Okay. So this is the notary page. So the grantor has to notarize, the trustee has to notarize or sign and get it notarized. And then the Schedule A is that consideration or that thing of value that you're going to put into the trust. And then this is where you're going to create your TCUs and you're going to disperse them. Schedule B is where you're going to list your properties, where you're going to list the beneficiary information, where you're going to list personal properties that you want to go to certain beneficiaries. And then the last one is your certificate of trust, which is that identification that I told you of, right? So this is what you're going to be providing when you go open up your bank account or when you go to the dealership to go purchase an actual trust. To go purchase a car for under the trust. Okay. So that is it, guys. So I'm going to open the floor for any questions that you guys might have. And I'm going to also take a look into the chat. Let's see here. Can you please go back to the books? Yeah, so they didn't mention the books. Good. So someone asks, how would you be able to donate your wages? That is a good question. So what's going to happen is if you're a W-2 employee or if you're a 1099, however that works, what you're going to do is you are going to donate the money to your trust. So just like you would donate to your church and do tithes to your church, right? You just hand the money over. And so you are going to get a donation receipt. So you are going to issue yourself a donation receipt. And as long as you have that donation receipt reflecting that you actually gave, 60% of your income to or donated it, then you give it to your tax preparer and then they're able to, include it in your 1040. So that's how that works. This is literally the best presentation with clear understanding I've heard. Thank you so much. Okay, so let me see. I think I have a couple more questions.
You like his blonde hair?
Can older get an IUL? Lynette, I'm not understanding what the question is. Can an older something get an IUL? I'm not, maybe an older person?
Yes, that's what I was trying to ask. Can older people, I was told, I was looking into the universal life insurance, and they kept saying they don't recommend it for older people, but more for the younger people. So I just wanted to know a little bit more about that because I like the idea of the presentation that you have, and I've been thinking how I can get a family trust, and we can do the same thing by, getting the policy. But for me being my age, I'm not real old, but I'm like in my 60s, and they told me no. So I'm really, so I don't know all the ins and out and how you can just dump your whole money up into this insurance policy unless they fund it or they fund it correctly by the insurance carrier. So I'm kind of confused.
Yes. Okay. So that's a really good question. So one, can older, there's no like specific age, but the thing about it is that you have to do a medical background. And so typically when you're older, you have like some medical issues and stuff. But if you have good health, then there's like no restriction as far as like how old you need to be. My agent, I think he said something about like 85 years old, but but I'm not sure. I don't think that there's like a specific number. That's one. Two, is that you do not have to insure yourself. So what you can do is you can actually insure the younger people and it's still your policy. So for example, your trust, your private family trust is going to be the owner of the policies, and instead of insuring yourself and doing the infinite banking with you being the insured, you can insure the younger people. So your nieces, your nephews, your, grandchildren, your godchildren, your the younger people that are in the trust or in your family. So it actually puts you in the position where you have more insurability, right? Because you can insure more people because you're operating with a trust. So you don't have to only think about yourself, and you do not have to be restricted. I have clients that are in their 70s and they are doing infinite banking with their trust, and they've insured younger nieces and nephews. I even have clients who are doing infinite banking and they are incarcerated and they have insured people on the outside. So that's extremely powerful. So I hope I answered your question, Miss Lynette.
Yeah, I think you did. I just think I'm just trying to figure out, because I told my family members about building a trust for everyone, and they're like, find out the information so we can all be part of it, but one agent said you need to get the insurance policy low and then let it build up. That way the money that you put into it is, you can put extra $100. So if you have someone younger and their policy premium is like $25 a month, you can put $100, and that $100 will go toward the cash value. So I just need guidance, I guess. So that's my whole thing. If I get the guidance and get in the trust, that's it. Thank you.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. And so a trust is the actual, when you're setting up an insurance policy that's owned by a trust, is customized. So you can actually, decide how much you want to put into the policy. And I will put you in connection with my partner that focuses and specializes in infinite banking. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. The next question is, does your course delve into title holding land trust for holding title to real estate? So the course does not talk about land trust. So it just teaches you how to transfer your real estate from your, personal name into the actual trust. And then I'm going to also hold classes on real estate investing, because I've been a real estate investor since 2015. And so I got into flipping houses, I hold property, and I'm getting into development. Okay, so I'm going to put all of that stuff into the course so you have lifetime access to whatever I add in the future. Next is, can you utilize the method to build new construction real estate as a developer? As far as it, so it's a different type of loan. So the loan that I was talking about, the debt service loan, that one is not particularly for new construction. It's for properties that are already generating cash flow. But you can purchase with a trust. You can purchase the land with the trust, and then you can also get funding with the trust for the new construction. So every month we have to transfer into the trust, is the trust to our account, then pay the bills. So every month you're going to transfer into the trust. So if you're like W-2, then you're going to transfer into the trust, and then the trust is going to transfer into the policy and then borrow the money back out, and then you can spend it from the trust account and pay your bills. How do you do donations before tax with the employer? So you transfer the money from your personal account into the ministry account, and then you issue yourself a donation receipt. So if you get into the course, or if you do the Done With You, we provide you with the donation receipts that you need. It's just one page, you fill it out, and boom, you have your proof. The next question is, can your trust provide emergency funds for emergency financial situation? So you can borrow from the trust. So if you have an emergency situation and your trust has $1 million in it, you can borrow, you know, the whole $1 million or however much you need for that emergency situation. So yes, I don't know if you're asking specifically from like an insurance policy or from the trust fund account, but you can borrow whatever funds you need from the trust. How do you get the recording? So the recording is going to be on the YouTube channel. So I'm going to put the link to the YouTube channel, and then you guys definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. I would appreciate and love that so much. So let me go ahead and put that link up there for you. And it's going to be up there like in the next hour. So there's the link to the channel. So let me see what other questions I have here. And if anybody wants to come off mute, I know so is it Yahweh?
Close, Yahuwah.
Yeah, Yahuwah. Okay, Yahuwah. Love it. How are you?
I'm good. I spoke to you before when we last talked.
All right, that sounds
Free
great.
Thinking Express.
I'm sorry.
Free Thinking Express.
Okay. Okay, yes, I remember. Yes, that's true.
All right.
I remember that name. Yes, we did speak.
All right. So with your new setup and everything with the foreign entity, will you have the SS set up also with the paperwork to where not only do you have the address, but the way it's structured so the EIN is foreign too? And also, go ahead.
Yeah, you can do it to where you get a 98 number. So I provide that information. So if you don't want to get an EIN, then you can get a 98 number, and you're still going to fill out your SS4 form, but there's a special number that you need to call down to the IRS and provide all the information, but you do need like a foreign address. So if you have a foreign address, then you're good to go.
All right. And also, am I able to merge my indenture with yours? Like, say there's stipulations or stuff like that for the beneficiaries. Could that be merged with yours?
Yeah, absolutely. Your trust is customizable. So like your trust could be 1 page if you wanted it to, or it could be 100 pages. So you can add stuff and, you know, customize it. You make it your own. You make it, you know, you put your provisions that you want in there. So yeah, you can add to it at any point in time. And you're also going to be, you know, throughout the life of the trust, you're going to be making amendments to it. So you're going to be adding things that, you know, that come up, different, you know, scenarios and stuff. So you'll be documenting that through your meeting minutes.
All right, that's good. Also, so which one is it that works with you one-on-one? Is it the 5 Zoom calls, or is it done with you that is like, it's pretty much the one-on-one and kind of like the Zoom, like you're working with me, but I'm mostly doing it myself, or?
Yeah, so with the 5 Zoom calls, I'm going to be on Zoom with you guys. We're going to be going through the trust together. So everything that I'm doing, you are going to be independently doing. So we're doing it together. And then if you need assistance after that, then you get two calls where you can, you know, get get either Q&A or for me to look over your documents and stuff like that before you finalize everything. So that's the done with you. And then I do have a one-on-one. So right now, if you didn't want to do the group, the done with you for the $14.97, then you could do the one-on-one. The one-on-one is $5,000, and that is for people that specifically need things tailored to them. So like I have clients who they don't have an LLC, or they want to create a S corporation, or they, you know, have a very complex structure, stuff like that. And so they don't want to do it in a group sitting. They want literally like one-on-one on Zoom. And they want that sense of privacy. And so they opt in for the one-on-one. So if that's you, or if anybody on the call wants to do one-on-one, just send me an email or a message, and then I'll be able to send you the enrollment link for the one-on-one.
Could you send that to me? And you said it's 5, right?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, cool.
I'll go ahead and send it to you. Can you send me, can you text the number? Because I don't
Yeah.
know where I'm going to be able to like find your, I have a lot of contacts. It's like over the
Oh, I
couple
know how
thousand.
it
I have
is,
a couple
especially
thousand
with the
people.
shadowing.
Yeah. So thank you. Somebody asked about the mentorship too. So I do have a mentorship. The mentorship is $10,000, and that is outside of the trust. And with the mentorship, that is for people who are pretty much, you know, starting from scratch. They either, you know, don't have a business, they don't have any streams of income. So I help them create multiple streams of income. So we do different streams from real estate investing. That's one of them. Foreign exchange market. That's another one. Index fund investing, and starting an e-com business where you are like selling digital products and stuff like that. And then also getting your business structured. All of the trusts are also incorporated in that, and the business credit. So that mentorship, like I said, is it's $10,000, and it's for 6 months. So if you guys are interested in that, you can also send me a message on the phone number, or you can send me an email. So the next question is, can I put my vehicle into the trust just in case something happens to me for my family if I'm still making payments on it? So you actually need the title to your vehicle. So if you do not have the title to your vehicle, then you cannot put your vehicle into the trust, because you won't be able to transfer the ownership. So typically, if we have a car note, that means that we have a lien holder. The bank has a lien on your vehicle, and they are not going to allow you to transfer the ownership of your vehicle from your personal name into the trust. So one, you either need to pay off that vehicle, or two, you need to refinance that current car loan into a new car loan from the actual trust. So meaning that you would actually go to like Ally Bank or Capital One or one of these banks to get a car loan for the trust and refinance your car out of its current lender. So the next one is, let's see. Also, how can I help my uncle put his house in a trust since he's 75 years old with his daughter and still making payments on it? So you can actually put your house into a trust even though it still has a mortgage, because you have the deed to your property. Okay, so that's extremely important to understand. You have the deed to your property, so you can transfer the deed from your personal name into the trust. Okay, so your uncle, he's 75 years old, and he wants to wants to protect that asset. He wants to avoid his daughter from going to probate. Then I would recommend that that's what he does, right? He sets up a private family trust, and he deeds it over from his personal name into the trust. Okay, your mortgage is going to stay intact, and the trust is now going to take over and make the payments, and that's, that's how it goes. So there's no issues that's going to happen with your mortgage. Let's see who's next. Mr. Kingcliff, iPad.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty good. Thank you. And thank you for this information. It's highly appreciated.
You're
The question
welcome.
I had was on all three of the trusts, they are express trusts, correct?
Correct.
Can they be edited, say, like you can turn a family trust into a FBO, or are they their own individual standing trust?
They're their own standing trust. You can make edits to them. So it'll be, so for example, we already have a FBO that's in the program. So they are very different. So the family trust and the faith-based organization, they don't have the same verbiage. They're like night and day. The
Okay.
faith-based organization is 59 pages and the family trust is 25 pages. So the verbiage is different, and that's why we call it two different things, and they're for two different purposes. But you can make whatever edits you want to the trust. So you can add, you can delete, you can customize, you can do whatever you want to your trust.
Wonderful. Again, thank you so much. You are highly appreciated.
Thank you so much, King. I appreciate you for being here and participating. Let's see. So someone asked, can you deposit your birth certificate into the trust in the beginning to fund it? So I've been asked this question before, and so from what I know, if your birth certificate has any value, you can actually, you can put it into the trust. So my partner Dion, she pretty much talks about that when it comes to adding your marriage certificate or your birth certificate or any of those things into your trust. The next one, those agents that come out are fraud. They insure who they want. They denied me at 38. So I guess you're talking about the insurance. So all the carriers are different. So I'm not sure which carrier you use, but if you get denied from one insurance company, you should always apply for another one. That's why when these insurance agents, they work with multiple companies. So I would not, give up, especially if you have good health. So you should apply for another company. Next question is, can you insure future children? So the children have to actually be born in order to be insured. So as long as they are at least 30 days old, then you can put an insurance policy on them, but just have it, in the plans, and also have it within the actual trust verbiage that every single future child or beneficiary is going to be insured by the trust. Next question is, did you say that the Done With You package will receive 20% discount or 50 if I purchase tonight? So if you purchase the Done With You tonight before midnight, you get a 20% discount. So instead of it being $14.97, it will go down to $11.97. And I have workshops coming up on Monday. So meaning that next week, Monday through Friday, we are going to be working together and setting up your 3 trusts. So you could be up and running in a matter of days. And then the course is half off. So instead of $9.97, it's going to be $498.50. Okay. And the actual, I will put in the discount codes that you need. So I'll put that in the chat, the discount codes that you need. Let me see what other questions I have. And then you guys can raise your hand if you have any questions. If not, I'm just going through the chat. So how do you pay money back to the insurance? So if you took out a loan from your insurance policy, you can pay it back. So all you have to do is just pay above your premium, and then that money is going to go back into your into your cash value. So when you're taking out these loans for your you know, from the actual insurance company, they are going to be charging you interest. Okay, so for example, if you put 10,000 into your policy, your 10,000, let's just say that it's making 10%, and then you borrowed it out, you're going to borrow it out at, let's just say 2%. So that means that you are going to average 8% returns on that 10,000. So next question, I have an IUL. My agent says that I put in 20K and take out 20K. There's nothing left to gain interest. Is that true? You have to contact your insurance company, but so it depends on how you take the money out. So you can actually remove money from your cash value, or you can borrow against your policy. So that is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about leveraging your policy and borrowing against your policy, not doing a what is it called? Not a you're doing a loan, not a disbursement, where they're going to actually take the money out of your cash value. No, you're doing a loan, meaning that you're borrowing the money from the insurance company. So I'm not sure exactly what your agent is talking about, but it depends on how you take the money out. Okay, so do the loan, not liquidating your cash value. Okay, because you want it to stay there gaining interest. And then does the Done With You package show you how to create your own trust, or will we still have to hire an attorney to pay thousands of dollars to establish the trust? So the trust that I just showed you is your trust. That's one of the 3 trusts. You get 3 different trusts. Okay, so the first one is the business trust. It's 51 pages. You get the templates. So I send you the templates. You download it from the online portal and you start customizing it. I'm going to teach you how to customize it after I teach you the contents that are inside of the actual trust. The second one is a private family trust. That's 25 pages. So once again, I'm going to educate you on the 25 pages. Then you start customizing it. So let's just say that you want to name it Brown Family Legacy. Then you are going to type in the name Brown Family Legacy. Okay, who is the grantor? Jessica Brown. We're going to put Jessica Brown's name. Who is the trustee? Robert Brown. We're going to put Robert Brown's name. What's the establishment date? August 30th. So that is what we're going to be doing. You're going to be customizing it. So I'm going to provide you with all the templates. So by the time you're done with the Done With You, you're going to have 3 executed trusts. Okay. So for personal trust, how do you recommend naming it? A lot of people, so I like using the word, so for the, like, when you say personal trust, I'm assuming you're talking about the family trust. So a lot of people, they use their initials, they use their family names sometimes, or they will use names like Empire, Legacy. They'll have the word family in there. They'll have the word estate in there. Those, you know, those generational names. So those are good names that you can use. Just don't use your personal name. George said that he subscribed. Thank you, George. I appreciate that. To Yonkwa, let's see. So when opening up the bank account, do you need the grantor to be there? If not, what information will they request from the grantor? So it depends on the bank that you go to. Some banks will ask you for the name of the grantor. Some will ask you for the social security of the grantor. I've never been to a bank where they ask for the grantor to be there. But some of them do ask for grantor information. If you don't have grantor information, or if the grantor is deceased, then you just have to let them know. And then the next one is, I have an IUL and my agent says, oh yeah, I answered that one already. How many real estate courses have been thinking of investing in quadplex and sixplex in a few cities, have money dumped into them? How much is a real estate course? I don't have how much is a real estate course? So I don't have a real estate course. So what I was saying was that I'm going to add trainings on the real estate investing into the actual online portal. So let's see. Kazawan. So sorry, I don't mean to mispronounce your name at all. Can you tell me how to pronounce it?
Oh, peace and love. Thank you. It's Kazawan.
Kazawan. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing blessed and thank you.
All right, perfect. So what's your question?
Okay, before I go there, I want to let you know we appreciate the information, the content, what you putting out. It's very powerful. Although some years I've been studying contract law, trust law, private law, public law, things in that nature. So, to understand everything that's going on and some of the things that put a lot of people behind or in trouble, et cetera, et cetera. So I had stepped away, and forgive me for this, I had stepped away for a second and I came back when you were giving, I believe, the percentage of 40 or 50% off. So my question is, if I heard you right, if I didn't, please forgive me. Is that for a bundle package for all three, or is it individually?
Oh yeah, so it actually includes all three. So there's two offers. The first one is you independently do it by yourself with the course, and that includes all three of the trust templates and the video training. So there's 42 video trainings. So that's $997, and if you purchase it tonight before midnight, then you get half off. And the other one is Done With You, where we're going to do it on Zoom together as a group. So next week, Monday through Friday, from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be on Zoom, and I'm going to be going through all three trusts. So you're going to get the templates, and we're going to be on Zoom together. And I'm going to be going through the contents of the trust, and you're going to be, customizing it and setting it up together. So that is next week, like I said, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9, and it includes all three trusts. Plus, we do the EINs together, we do the board meetings together, we do the business trust credit establishment together. So you're done number and stuff. And then from there, we do transferring your assets. So your quick claim deeds, business purchase agreements, bill of sales, we do all those things together. And that's next week. I apologize. So so that's $14.97, and you get 20% off if you purchase by midnight.
Thank you, Queen. I appreciate that.
You're so welcome. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate it. Hi, Jessica. How are you?
Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for such wonderful information.
Thank you.
I'm totally here trying to catch up and just take it all in. But one of my questions is, what if you don't have any assets yet? Well, I guess my first question is your LLC is that considered an asset?
Yes, it is. Your LLC
Okay.
is an asset. A business and is an asset. A business can be sold for money. So
Okay.
that is, an exchange of value. So it is an asset. And if you don't have any assets, you're in a good position because you want to establish or create the owner before you create the asset or before you buy the asset. Okay. So if you don't have any assets, meaning you don't have a house, a car, an insurance policy, a business, Well, you want to create a trust because now the trust is going to own the house. So the trust can purchase the house outright. The trust is going to own the car, so you can purchase the car under the trust. The trust is going to take out or apply for the insurance policy. So the trust is going to, do that initially. You don't have to do all this stuff backwards, meaning that you have the business and then now you have to go make an amendment, or you have the trust and now, you have the insurance policy and now you have to go, change the ownership and stuff like that. So that's a good position to be in.
Okay, thank you for that. And then so what would you suggest I begin with, the do it yourself or with the other route? Because I know you talked a lot about like some pieces we're going to be talking about transferring and doing this, and if I don't have those, do you still see that it's necessary to do that the Zoom one or like the other package?
So I always tell people to do the done with you if you can, because of that accountability. I've seen a lot of my students to where they procrastinate, and so they will, they'll sit on the course and not do it, or do halfway, or they will not, actually follow through and get their trust notarized and stuff like that. It depends on the individual, because I've seen, some of my students get it done in 24 hours. So that accountability is extremely powerful, because one, we're actually doing it together. And then two, you are literally like up and running in a couple of days versus just, sitting on the information and then getting confused and then having that analysis paralysis, which I've seen as well. It's like, okay, well, I have all these questions, so I'm just going to stay stuck in this one spot because I don't know the answer to this question, so I'm not going to move forward. Another thing to keep in mind is that if you decide to do the course, you can always upgrade to the done with you. So if you get stuck, if you need support, if you want that accountability, then later on, a month, 2, 3, 4, 5, a year, however long it takes, if you want to upgrade to done with you, you will be able to do that. You just have to pay the difference.
And that would, of course, be the difference of what you would be selling it that day.
Yeah, at that time, yeah.
Right. That makes sense. Okay, and then so my last question is, with the trust, is this something like, I know you were mentioning that it's like a person in a sense, right? And so do you have to build credit for this trust? Is that kind of like the concept also? Like, or is that, I don't know if that's the right way to ask the question, but like, is it something that you're build? Because you were saying you're going to teach us how to build the business. Was that just for the business side of the trust, or is that for the trust as itself?
Yeah, so with the trust, it's optional if you want to build credit or not. But if you decide that you want your trust to establish credit, then yes. So you have to remember, like us as natural people, right? We're not born with credit, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not born with credit. We actually have to establish credit. And so typically when we're 18 years old, we'll take out our first credit card. So we all start at nothing, right? And then we actually get to generate a score. Or if our parents put us on a credit card, then we get to generate a score. It's the same thing with the trust. So think of the trust as an 18-year-old kid with no credit at all. You have to establish the credit. And so that means that you have to start from ground zero, which is creating a profile. And then from there, you're going to get a couple of net 30 accounts, which means that these are like account receivables to where you would make purchases and then you'll pay it back in 30 days. And those will then be reported to your business credit profile, which will show that you have some type of history and you have some type of activity of paying, stuff back. And so then that'll put you in a position to where you have various trade lines and you can now have a score that's generated. So you do have to establish a established credit. If you want to do that, it's optional. It's optional, Jessica.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm going to refer this to so many people. Thank you so much.
Yes, we have a referral program too, okay? So I will if you send a message, if you text, like how you were texting earlier today, Jessica. So if you text me, I will send you the link to the affiliate program so that whoever you refer, you can get 20% commission, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Miss Lynette, how are you? Miss Lynette, I see your hand.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I have a question, maybe a couple of questions. You probably answered it to someone else. Now, I have a business, but it is with both my husband and my name. And I don't like that idea that we have an LLC with that because I also have property, right? I have 2 rentals and I have established my business credit already, my EIN number and everything. So I don't know, whether if this program is for me or not and how I can really get to where I can get the business trust or family trust. I'm so confused because it's like I'm like all over the place and what do I need to do? What I need to start because I want to protect my assets. And so I try to reach out to my attorney about the trust. Like guy just will not call me back. And then now it's like, okay, what do I do now? So when you brought up business trust, I don't know, what to do with that. So that's why I don't know which program is for me because I have banks. I have 3 business bank accounts. I have established very well business credit and my EIN number. I just don't have the trust. So I'm kind of confused. Where would you recommend?
Okay. So when you're saying, where to start, so it sounds like you would the way that you're structured now, it sounds like you would benefit from having all 3 trusts. So like if you get into the program, you don't have to choose which trust, you get all 3 of them, right? So you have a business. And you said that the business currently is under you and your husband, right? You guys are both the manager.
Right, we both are on there. And I don't want our names to be listed as you stated that the state owns it, right? And it how do you get that to be transferred and changed? Just having it structured right,
Yeah. Yeah. So you would benefit from having a business trust, right? Because now you can remove yourself from the business and you can put the trust as the forefront of the business, saying that the trust is the manager of that LLC. And so then they won't be able to come after you personally because your name is not there. And so the process that I bring my clients through is, one, we're going to do a business purchase agreement showing that you sold the business to the trust, right? So that you can remove ties from the business. And then the second thing is that you're going to do an amendment. So you can make any changes that you need to or want to with your LLC. And so you're going to remove yourself when you're doing this amendment. You're going to remove yourself as the manager. You're going to remove your spouse as the manager. And now you're going to add the trust as the new manager and you're going to file it. They are going to update it with the Secretary of State's and the public records. And now you're going to be physically removed. So could you benefit from that? Yes, because 1, now you have your identity that is protected, but 2, in the event of a lawsuit, you are also protected because you have that first layer of defense. So there's a trust in between you and that LLC. So that's what you need. I believe that there was a second part to your question.
Well, yeah, because I have real estate that's in my name.
Yes.
and it's not in my husband's name.
Okay.
So that's kind of like complicated, and I don't know, would that go under the family trust or the business trust?
Yeah, so it would go under so if you want, it can go under your private family trust. It would not go under your business trust. Your business trust is only for business purposes, right? You need
Okay.
multiple LLCs because it's going to protect you from lawsuits, okay? So you don't want to hold assets in your business trust because your business trust might be sued. It's out here conducting, in commerce, conducting business, and it can be sued. So
Okay.
you want to have a trust that's off the grid, private, and it's, nowhere on the Secretary of State, nowhere recorded in a county or anything like that. And that is where you want to hold your real estate or your assets. Okay. So
Okay.
now you're saying that your spouse is not on there. So when you deed it over to the trustees are going to be you and your spouse, right? So you guys are going to be both controlling the asset, and you are the only person who needs to sign to gift it over to the trust because you're the only person on the deed. But your previous question was, well, can I benefit from this? Yes, because if you decide that you don't want to do a trust, like I had mentioned earlier on the call, your property is going to end up in probate. Your estate
Right.
end up in probate. So
Right.
you have assets, you have a business, you have a home, you have money in the bank. You can benefit from multiple trusts within your structure.
Okay. Then the question is, so now with that being said, and transfer the business over, right? And to the business, how does that affect all the business credit that's has in our name? Like say the business,
It
oh, it
doesn't.
does?
Everything, you're not dissolving the business. You're going to continue to operate the business. The business just has a new owner. It doesn't. So everything, when you're selling a business, you sell it with the credit. You sell it with the debt, with the
Oh,
loans, with the assets. Everything stays intact and the business continues to operate as it has been operating.
so that means that after I get the trust, and like, okay, I'll take the course, you probably go more in detail. But after you get the trust, the business trust, then I cannot apply for no more business credit since I sold it over to the trust.
No, you can still apply for business credit. You're still going to operate the trust. So the trust has a new owner. It doesn't mean that it doesn't qualify for credit. It can.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, what okay, so that course is what? 20% off?
The course right now is 50% off in the next couple hours.
Is
So
that for the done with me? That's the one you're talking about, right? Or is that
no, the done with you is 20% off and the do it yourself is 50% off. So do you
oh
want to do it by yourself or do you
no,
want
I know I won't. I know I'm so busy with work and everything else, so I know I have to have some accountability.
Okay, yeah. So the done with you is 20% off. So instead of $14.97, it'll be $11.97 for the next couple hours.
Okay. And you said to midnight.
Yeah,
The
midnight.
other one is like $9.97, so that's half, like that's what, 400 and something.
Yeah,
Well,
$4.98.
did you get any mentorship with that one or no?
No, it's by yourself. You only get the 42 video modules, and then you get to ask questions in the Facebook group.
That's it? Oh my God. I need a mentor.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I really appreciate it. Thank you. You did a great job with your presentation. Thank you so
You're
much.
so welcome. Thank you, Miss Lynette. I appreciate you being here. All right, next. Let's see, let me lower this. Lower hand. Kasawa.
Kazawan.
Kasawan. I'm so sorry. Oh my God. Probably by
Oh,
the
that's
end
okay.
of it,
That's
if I
okay.
get it right.
And I agree with the wonderful young lady that just got off, that you did an excellent presentation.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
You're very welcome. So what I'm currently looking at right now, because it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Definitely got to take advantage of this. So I just want to make sure I'm purchasing the right one.
Okay.
Because I know about trust. I'm actually operating a business trust
Okay.
and some personal trust for my young ones. But let's see, which one, if I was to, because I'm looking at 4 different things: wealthy trustee program, wealthy trustee payment plan. Okay, so it's basically 2, but broken down.
Yeah. So yeah, you have
Okay.
yeah. So for the people who are going to pay full price, you can either pay full price or there's a payment plan available. So if you are wanting to do the course, then you have a payment plan. So it's 3 payments of $359. If you want to do the done with you, then it's a payment plan available there and it's 3 payments of $533. So,
Got you.
so if you want to take advantage of the discount, then you would choose either the Wealthy Trustee Program, which is a course, or you would choose the Done With You, and then you would put in the discount code. So the discount code is the word trust, and then the number 20. For the 20% off, and then for the 50% off for the Wealthy Trustee Program is Trust 50.
Okay, that was my next question. Okay, thank you so much, Angel. I appreciate
Yes,
it.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me see. What time do you stop answering text messages and phone calls? I do not know. So probably now, probably 10 o'clock. Let's see. What is so Letitia says, I have a term policy. Can I transfer this policy into an IUL? So your term life policy, you cannot convert it into an IUL. You would have to just take out an IUL policy. Your term life policy, you can put it into the trust though. So if that's what you want to do. Let me see. So what part of the trust do you need to take to the bank account, to the bank to open up a trust bank account? So you need to take your EIN and the certificate of trust. So the certificate of trust is like the last 3 pages, which is that proof of identity for the trust. So that's the 2 instruments that you would need in order to open up the bank account. Someone asked, what are the fees to file or register each trust? So you do not want to file or register your trust because that's going to make your trust public. So you want your trust to remain private. So the only thing that you're going to do once you've established your trust is you're going to get it notarized. Getting your trust notarized makes it legal. And so you all you have to do is pay for the notary. So sometimes it's $10, $15. Some banks do it for free. If I'm one that's creating the trust, can I personally select myself to be the grantor and the trustee, or do you advise against that? If you are setting up an irrevocable trust, then you cannot be the grantor and the trustee. You have to choose one position. So if you want full control over your trust, then I would tell you to choose to be the trustee and appoint someone else to be the grantor, because the grantor has no power and control when it comes to an irrevocable trust. Can you provide the discount? Yeah, I'm going to provide the discount code now. Let's see, trust 20 for the done with you and trust 50 for the do it yourself course. And I just put that in there. Let's see, next question. Okay. I think that's it. So, is there any final questions? It is 10:24. I do want to be respectful of your time. I do appreciate you guys remaining on the call and joining me this evening. And and I look forward to talking with you guys soon. So, is there any last questions before I let us go? It says by midnight Eastern Standard. No, it's actually Western. Yeah, so it's midnight PST, so Pacific Standard Time. So you have until 3 a.m. EST or midnight PST. So right now, I think we have another 5 hours where you can actually take advantage of this discount. And I'm currently in California right now. Yep. And on a Zoom call. Yeah, that's perfect. How much do you have to put in an IUL and before you can borrow from it? That's a good question, Tracy. So with an IUL policy, there's something called a surrender charge. That surrender charge is a security deposit, just in case you end up canceling your policy, prior to a certain time. And so what happens is you need to actually pay up that surrender charge before you start putting money into the cash value, or that's how the carriers structure it. So for example, let's just say that your surrender charge is, $3,000. And today you made a deposit. You opened up your policy today and you funded it, today with 10,000. 3 of it is going to go to the surrender charge, which is the security deposit, which you're going to get back, but you're going to get it back after 1 to 2 years. It's going to be put into your cash value. And then the other 7,000 is going to go into your cash value. So that's what's going to happen. So now that 7,000 that went into your cash value, you can borrow it out immediately. So literally the same day. So someone said, yay, IUL over a whole life policy. Yeah, I prefer IUL over whole life any day, because you're going to make more money and there's more flexibility with it. And then, let's see, Yahuwah has a question.
Oh no, I just wanted to say thank you for the knowledge and wisdom.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. Kasawan said, I'm officially in. Yay, congratulations. I'm so happy to hear that. Yes, can't wait to start working with you. So thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. Tonight was an amazing evening. I hope that you gain a lot of knowledge and information, and I hope that you apply the information that you learned tonight, because it's super valuable. Like I said, it could help change the trajectory of your family, your kids' kids. I think London has a question. London, do you have a question?
I just have a statement. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you. I love that name.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to say thank you as a member of Moorish National Republic of Peace, which is an indigenous nation. The information you provided was very amazing. I learned a lot. We talk about trust all day, every day, and I still feel like I came and I learned something, and I'll be taking your class back to a board meeting of ours to see about us making sure that we incorporate it, because I'm in. I just want to say you did great.
Thank you so much, Ms. London. I appreciate you so much. Yes, I know your nation is amazing, and I've heard so much about it. And I know you guys talk about trust because I have a couple of my clients that are Moors. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you and those kind words. And I appreciate every single person on the call. Like I said, please, take action on the information that I provided tonight. If you don't have your affairs in order, get your affairs in order and start building this generational wealth intentionally, and start thinking about the actual transfer of wealth and protecting the wealth and growing the wealth. And if you guys have any questions, just please either DM me on social media, send me an email, or text the number that you received the Zoom link. Okay. So everybody be blessed, and I will talk to you soon. Have a good night. Bye.